Welcome to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten.
Hi, I'm Wendy. After I graduated with my master's in wellness management, I started my own company, T2 Coaching, health, fitness, and sport.
And I'm Kirsten, an athlete, vegan, life coach, and girl mom, running a business focused on helping others create a life they love.
We are here to explore all things wellness to help you become the person you've always wanted to be.
So if that's why you're here, open your ears and your mind as we tackle the world of wellness together.
Hey, friends.
Hey, Kirsten.
Hi, Wendy. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. How has your week been?
Great.
Yeah. Anything in particular?
I tend to take the first part of any new year and I do a lot of decluttering and organizing my business. And it kind of leads to my wellness win for the week is that I went through my Google Drive. So I have a lot of content. I've been creating content since 2020. During that time when things were closed, I had a little more time to do stuff and I started creating content, both video and blogging. And I save a lot of content in my Google Drive, which was getting quite full. And I hadn't really looked at it all. And so it felt good to kind of go through my Google Drive and delete stuff that I've already produced, either video or blogging, and just kind of getting rid of ideas that I'm not interested in creating any more content for, and looking at ideas that I'm like, oh, that would make a good reel or a good post on Instagrams. Just kind of organizing more the back end of the business type stuff. And again, for that wellness win that we usually talk about on the podcast, that was kind of my wellness win for the week is doing stuff like that, because it makes me kind of frees up my mind, frees up some space, and just makes me feel a little bit more relaxed, less anxiety.
Nice. Mine was very similar, actually, my wellness win. And same thing at the beginning of the year, I always kind of go through, I make a lot of lists. So make a lot of lists. And I spent last month, I swam a lot. So this month is my bike month. So I'm going to bike a lot and I get so much done when I'm on the bike. So yesterday I actually spent 2 hours on the bike at the gym and I went through probably at least 500 photos and videos. And kind of did the same thing. Like I put them in a folder, like, oh, here's like videos I had like made but never put out, or made but now I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I want to put that out, but I need to update some things because it might have been from a year ago. So I put things in a folder that I wanted to do something with, and then I deleted, I don't know, maybe 50 videos and maybe 500 or 600 photos.
Yeah. And I've kind of been doing that. I kind of started doing that in the month of December, is going through my phone, freeing up some space, getting rid of videos. A lot of the videos were just my own personal videos of my own daily stuff that I do. And a lot of them were just downloads from my Google Drive that I would create a reel on Instagram for. And I'm like, okay, I don't need this. It's in my Google Drive. Why do I have it in two places? And so I think decluttering in that way is a sense of accomplishment for me.
Yeah,
and
that's how I am.
It feels really good.
I'm doing this challenge, this January challenge with whoever wants to do the January challenge with me. I usually announce things in my Facebook group, and then whoever wants to get into it can jump in. But we're doing a habit tracking, or like a streak. So picking a habit that you want to create and do it every single day this month. And so one of mine is, I actually picked 4. One is drinking more water. One is tracking my income and expenses. One is not spending money on anything that is not necessary for the month. And then my final one is every single day I have to organize something. So even if it's like, okay, this bookshelf today, or this corner of the house, but it goes along with that decluttering and that kind of, out with the old, in with the new, make space for what's coming. And so, yeah, I do the same exact thing in January. I used to do this challenge. So if any of you guys are looking for kind of a more structured challenge, I used to do this challenge where on January 1st, I threw away one thing. Or you could like throw it away, give it to Goodwill, give it away, something in your house. January 2nd, I would get rid of 2 things. January 3rd, I would get rid of 3 things, all the way up. And it ends up, I added it up, it ends up like 500 things that you're getting rid of.
You do it for the month of January?
For the month of January. So on the 31st, you're getting rid of 31 things.
Right. So that just reminds me of a challenge that I've done. It was one year on my birthday where I knew people are always struggling, especially multi-sport athletes are struggling with strength training. So for my birth month, which is March, I would introduce one strength movement. And this was all body weight stuff because not everyone has access to
Right.
equipment. On day 2, you repeat what you did on day 1, and then you add another strength. Day 3, you repeat day 1, day 2, and you add something else. So by the end of the month, you had 31 body weight strength movements that you could
Ooh, I
do.
like
And
that.
that's about a 30-minute workout if you only do like one set of everything. And my gosh, I just thought it was an amazing idea
I
to get
know.
people to slowly adapt to some body movements for strength training. I thought it was just really a creative thing that
Yeah,
I did.
I like that. I'm going to pick one of my months and I'm going to do that.
Yeah, it's
I'm
great. And I have it saved and I have it saved in my Google Drive. And if anyone wants it, I introduced it actually in an Instagram reel last week because again, new year, new strength, new ideas, new focus. And I offered it to people if they want a PDF of it, just let me know.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I always try to do that with I don't try to do it. I do it with my personal training clients is
Uh-huh.
I ask them, what equipment do you have at home? And so they, a lot of them come to the gym because they want a training plan they could do at the gym, but then they either get too busy to go to the gym or they cancel their gym membership or something.
Mhm.
So I also always write them out a strength training plan that they could do at home.
Yeah.
And so if some people have zero equipment, some people have just like a band
Mm-hmm.
or like one of those yoga ball, like the small yoga balls.
Yeah.
And so you could get really creative and make an entire full body workout with one piece of equipment, or like you said, even no equipment.
Yep.
So
No
that would
excuses.
that's definitely wellness made easy.
I love it. Yes.
All right. So what are we talking about today?
Well, I kind of just wanted to review some things that we've already talked about, like a word of the year. We had
Ooh,
introduced our
I forgot to ask you because I
Yeah,
love
we had introduced our word of the year, and my word of the year was actually adapting, but I was also knowing I was going to adapt to my word of the year. And it came to me that my word of the year, and I think I'm going to stick with it, I don't think it'll change, is possibilities.
I love that. I love it for you. I love it just in general because possibilities in life are endless.
Right. And again, this happened like last week, and I don't know what triggered it, but it felt so good to say when people ask me, what is your word of the year? It was just easy to say possibilities for sure. But I'm definitely adaptable, but possibilities is a great one.
I like it. And I was thinking when you told me that, when you're like, ooh, possibilities, I'm like, I like that. And the reason I like that more for you than adaptability is I feel like you're already so good at adaptability and you
Mhm.
already practice that so much in your life that for me, the word of the year is more something that excites me or something I aspire to.
Aspire to for sure. My word of last year was transformation because of the recovery process I went through and just the unknown of how I would transform. So transformation really kind of just led into okay, I've had this transformation. What's possible?
Right.
Yeah. So it's
All right.
exciting.
Okay. So what are we talking about new today?
So again, it has to kind of do with stuff we've already talked about, identity and FOMO, fear of missing out. They kind of go together. So it's definitely something that after we had our last podcast, I've kind of thought tied into the first two podcasts that we've already covered. And I think it's really important, especially this time of year, as people start the new year, kind of start new changes, new goals, new challenges. It could be really overwhelming. And I know I suffered from FOMO, but I didn't know I had FOMO. I remember when a woman named Sue I coached in Colorado, she kept signing up for Ironmans. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Because you just don't have time. You're a full-time mom, teacher. You are missing all this training. Why do you keep doing these Ironmans? And she told me FOMO. And I had to look it up. I'm like, what's FOMO? Fear of missing out. And I could totally see that because she was in all these triathlon groups and clubs and everyone was doing it. So she wanted to do it as well. And for me, I enjoy the training and the process leading up to an event. And by the time the event comes, I could care less about the event. I usually don't want to do the event. I'm like, okay, I got to the point where I want to be because of this event, but I don't really want to do it. I just wanted to do the training to get to that fitness level that I know I can do it. And so when I broke my knee in 2023, probably the first 6 to 8 months of my recovery, I would go on social media and I'd see all these events. And at that time I was more focusing on trail running, ultra running, less on the multi-sport. And I could care less. Like I really had this feeling of, wow, how do people run 50Ks? Oh my God, 100-miler, no way. And I've done 50Ks. I've done 100-miler. And that's what I was passionate about before I broke my knee. And I didn't have FOMO. Like I was totally like, I think I'm going to start off with a 5K and see how that goes. And that's exactly what I did in 2024. I started off doing 5Ks and I built up, and I ended up finishing the year with a 50K. That was not intended. That kind of just happened. And I'm finding myself, now that I'm healthy, looking at what are my friends doing? What's everyone else doing? And I'm finding myself getting back to that FOMO-ish way. And I'm reeling myself in because I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that I had that and not recognize it. And it probably led to me overdoing it. Okay, this month I'm going to do a 30-day streak. I'm not going to miss a swim. I'm not going to miss a bike. I'm not going to miss a run. And I'm going to train for a 5K. I'm going to train for a 10K. Oh, there's a 50K. Oh, there's a 100-mile. Oh, there's an Ironman. And then all of a sudden my training is everywhere, trying to fit it all in. And then I got overtrained and my legs were tired and I broke my knee. Anyway, I thought it was an important topic to talk about, as well as, putting that again with identity. I think athletes, based on my perspective as a coach and athlete, people chase certain events, certain dreams athletically because it's an identity thing. Like years and years and years ago, someone identified me as the Iron Man. And at that time, it's a label. I don't like labels. So I wanted to make sure I threw in the word label too. I don't like labels. And I'm like, I don't want to be labeled as an Iron Man because there's more to what I do than just being an Iron Man. And at the time, I had known Iron Man athletes that I didn't really like the way they trained or way they talked about Ironman or their personalities. I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want people to identify me as that type of Ironman athlete. And so years and years ago, I would always I wanted to get rid of labels. And I think labels and identity and FOMO all go together.
Right. I subbed a cycling class this morning and there were several people in the class that I knew. So I just threw it out there to a couple people I was talking to after class because I was going to see if they had any input or questions or anything. And I was like, yeah, Wendy and I are going to talk about blah, blah, blah. And one of the women in the class, she was like, yeah, I wanted to be a trail runner because she liked the identity of it. She liked being like kind of like rugged, laid back, ultra runner. Like you don't, like a lot of people are like, oh, when I can't go fast anymore, I'm just going to start trail running because it's more, it's a lot of hiking and a lot of elevation and technical stuff. And she was like, yeah, I wanted to be a trail runner. Like she wanted people to think of her as a trail runner because she liked that identity. She liked what it presented. She liked what it looked like, what it meant to people. And so she did the same thing. All her friends that were trail runners, she's like, what race are you doing? What race are you doing? What race are you doing? She signed up for all these races and she started training. And she's like, she realized she didn't even love trail running.
Right.
And so I was thinking, like, our podcast is Wellness Made Easy. So I was like, how can we simplify this for people? How can we make this an easy decision for people who want to do all the races of all the different, and even all the different activities? It doesn't even have to be races. Like I know parents and they're like, oh, these parents are going, these guys are doing a book club and these guys are doing this budget class and these, and they want to be a part of everything. So I was thinking, how can we help people make this simple? And it kind of goes back to, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, is about what are your priorities?
Mm-hmm.
And I have another athlete. She sent me a list like 3 days ago of like 20 different options, but she's trying to save money. So she's like, what do you think? And I'm like, and she wants to apply to do Badwater in a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
So she needs a resume. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, look at all these races. Which 3 races are going to look best on your Badwater resume? Because her priority is getting into Badwater in a couple years.
Right.
So that would be my first thing to say is, what are your priorities in your life in general? And which races or which classes or which goals are going to move you toward that priority or that way you want to live or that lifestyle you want to have, and just make it simple.
Right. So another thing I want to mention about this whole thought on identity is when it has to do with my breaking my knee. When my sister told me a week or very shortly after my surgery is, you lost your identity. And I had never at that time thought, okay, I broke my knee. I didn't lose my identity at all. But I understand what she was saying. She's like, well, you can't train and race the way you used to. And my whole thought was, well, I will again, And at the same time, one of my friends had either 2 weeks before me or 2 weeks after me, she had hip labrum surgery. And she completely lost her identity. She no longer thought of herself as a runner. And I'm like, why? Like, okay, you're not going to run for 6 months. But that's
Right.
never, just because I couldn't run for 6, 8 months, I never thought of myself as, I'm not a runner anymore. I'm not a triathlete anymore. Just because I may not do triathlons as much as I did, I'm still a triathlete and I'm still a runner. So my perspective and positivity was like, well, this is temporary. I'm going to be able to run again, as well as races aren't going away.
No,
So
there's
I
gonna be races.
also came to the realization that 50 mile that I wanted to do isn't going to go away. I don't have to do everything in 1 year.
Right.
I just have to plan and say, okay, what are my values? What are my goals? What are my priorities? Right now, I want to get back to speed. I want to get fast. I want to work on speed again. And so I know all my strength, I did all the strength last year. The strength will turn into speed. As I get faster, that'll carry over into faster as I go longer and longer and longer, but it has to start with speed. And it's just kind of thinking ahead, those 3 and 5 year goals. Usually I like anniversaries. In 2023, I wanted to run 100-mile race in Steamboat to celebrate 10 years since I ran it. 10 years, so I like kind of thinking ahead at anniversaries like that and setting goals and events that way. But just again, going back to what you said, what is the priority now? Presently, what is your priority? And the vision of, will it feel better to run a 50 miler or will it feel better to complete an Ironman? Because they're both about the same amount of time. They both take about the same amount of time. So you're still going to get your endurance high, whether you do a 50-mile trail run or an Ironman. What feels good? So in the past, when I would do a lot of Ironmans, before I'd sign up for an Ironman, I'd ask myself, will I be disappointed in 1 year if I'm not at that race?
Right.
If I won't be disappointed, I don't want to do it. If I will be disappointed, I'm going to sign up. And so that's a strategy to use. I kind of got off topic.
Well, I have a question for you. So I love that you don't think of you didn't have that identity, that your injury didn't bust your identity wide open. But I feel like more people than not that would have.
Oh, absolutely.
So what would you suggest to people because I've been in the same kind of boat where when I broke my collarbone 1 year, again, I knew I was going to do it again, but I'm like, I'm not an athlete. Who am I? And no, I did question all those things, but I mostly did last year. So I retired from Ironman distance triathlon. So I decided in 2023 in Kona was going to be my last full Ironman. And my friends are like, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. And I'm like, no, I'm really not. And then last year I did a couple times. I don't want to do an Ironman, but a couple times when people would talk about Hawaii, I was like, oh, I want to do Hawaii again at some point in Kona. And so people are like, oh, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. And I'm the same way as you. Like, people when they saw, that don't really know me very well, but they saw there was an Ironman, they're like, "Oh, did you do that race?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "No, I don't do fulls anymore." And I'm like, people like see me as doing full Ironmans,
Right.
and I'm doing halves. So for me, like, that's my new identity, is because I want to get faster, and it doesn't take all the training. But what would you say to people who are struggling with the identity, whether like it's your client with her hip?
Right. So I actually made a list of notes that I want to read. I just pulled them up. So first you want to clarify your core values. What are your values? Because when you know your values and you know your goals and you know what gets you happy and excited, then the idea of FOMO becomes less. And when FOMO becomes less, the idea of having that identity as an athlete in your sport will become less. Write down the top 3 things that make you happiest or most fulfilled. Reflect on a moment that you were most proud of. What value was reflected on that? So, for example, like if family is one of your core values, then skipping the workout or skipping an athletic party to spend time with your family won't feel like a sacrifice. I think most importantly is separate identity from external achievements.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to feel, and I probably still do, you go to an event or whatever race you do, you win. There's a feeling that you get, at least that I get when I
Associated
win.
with
It's
that.
an achievement. It's an excitement. It's an attention. Everyone gives you attention. And then you're more likely to say, okay, I'm going to go sign up for another event so I can get that feeling again. I don't do that anymore. I take it in. I say, that was awesome. I achieved my goal. I got the praise. I got the accolades, whatever I was trying to get out of that event. Let's calm it down. Let's turn the volume down a notch. And
Right.
let's kind of reset. Take your time. Don't sign up for another event for at least 2 weeks. I
Right.
tell every athlete I've ever coached for an Ironman, don't go home and sign up for an Ironman. Whether you crawl across the finish line or whether you have a PR, sign up for an event from 2 up to 4 weeks if you can handle it post
If you
Ironman,
handle it.
because after an Ironman or an ultra, you have all these highs and lows for a couple weeks. I hate it. I love it. I hate it. I love it. I hate it. I
Right.
love it.
You either want to repeat that feeling, or you want to, if you didn't finish or you didn't set your goal, then you're like, I have to go back and do it.
Right. So you just give yourself time for your emotions to kind of stabilize and reset and refocus and reflect. I think reset, refocus, and reflect is really important. Embrace evolution. And what that means is accept that your interests may change.
Yeah.
Like you retired Ironman. I did the same thing. Now, I'm never going to say never do an Ironman again, but I knew going into Kona 2022, that was going to be the last time I would probably ever be on the Big Island, probably my last Ironman event. And I took it all in and I prepared for that. I already knew that going into it. I stayed longer. I arrived earlier, and I really took on all what Kona had to offer and did some things that I haven't been able to do on the Big Island because I knew that was going to be different. Every year it happens. I want to be back on the island. I don't want to race the Ironman on the island, but I do just want to be there because
Right.
Ironman week is amazing. But I already know I don't want to be there as an athlete. I'd rather be there as a spectator, supporter, coach, volunteer, and I'll still get that emotion that I'm looking for without having to be the athlete doing it.
Right.
Having a supportive community of people who can relate to what you're going through. So again, going back to my surgery and breaking my knee, I mean, I did a lot of research online. Endurance athletes don't break their patella. And it was really difficult for me to kind of find that community that could understand what I went through when I was on 6 weeks of crutches and no weight bearing and losing my muscle. I mean, I spent my whole life getting fit, strong, and stable. And then all of a sudden my quad, my whole really right leg muscle was gone. Like,
Right.
oh my gosh, like when am I going to get it back? So it's important when you're going through times of setbacks that are impacting some identity that you have, me as an athlete. It was really nice to eventually find some people who were kind of going through similar situations or who had gone through them, like with ACL injuries. That's a pretty popular injury, pretty, kind of the same thing where you're non-weight bearing and you lose your muscle and it takes so much time to get back to it, is really helpful to have that community of feeding off each other about how you can overcome that.
Right. So one thing I was thinking when you were saying that is we're really lucky in our sport, and any of you guys who do any sort of like multi-sport, because it's called multi-sport because it's many sports. It's more than one sport. And these days, almost every race, especially the local races, they'll have like an aqua bike. So if you can't run anymore, but you still like the community and being a multi-sport athlete, you can go do the swim bike. Or they have the aquathon where there's no bike. So if you know, I know people who got in a bike crash and they don't want to get on their bike again outdoors. And there's just a lot of ways. There's one of the races I do every year and they have a paddle. It's a stand-up paddle option for the swim. So you could do stand-up paddle, bike, and run. So if you're involved in triathlon or multisport, there's other ways also. If you can't, for whatever reason, go back to doing a specific sport.
Mm-hmm.
You could still be part of it. Because I know a lot of people they're like, I just love this community.
Right. You can still be part of the community in a different way.
Right. Or even like we both have a friend from many, 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 many years ago, and I don't think she does triathlon anymore, but she volunteers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I see her at races volunteering because she still likes to be part of the community.
Yeah.
So there's other ways to get involved.
Right. You know, and I think the big thing about identity is separating it from external achievements.
Yeah. And also just like you said, like knowing who you are, because nobody is what they do.
Right.
I feel like you only think you're what you do if you've been told that your whole life. Like, you know, there's some great documentaries out there with professional athletes who retired, Olympic champions who retired, and they were told their whole life, this is you, this is you, this is you. And then they, you know, at the ripe old age of 18 or 19,
Mm-hmm.
they're done with their sport, and then
Mm-hmm.
they have their whole life ahead of them and they don't know who they are.
Right.
So I think like learning who you are, doing some personal growth, taking a deep dive of just what you said, who you are as a person and your beliefs and what's important to you, and all those things will help you form an identity that isn't based on anything external.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, what if you lost your job, got a divorce, who would you be?
In retirement, that happens in retirement
It
too.
happens a lot in retirement.
That's why people start triathlon. Like a lot of people do. They're like, you know, I've heard of people, they're like, I retired and I lost my identity as a teacher or as a whatever. And so they were reaching for something else. So trying different things.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, you know, we keep talking about, you know, triathlon and our sports. I mean, obviously I do have some identity to it. And at the same time, I don't, because my sport, I do it for physical and mental well-being more than I do it for performance gains.
Right.
Sure. When I have a goal to win or to, you know, attempt something, I want to win, but ultimately training a certain way, preparation for a certain way to win is more satisfying to me than for my mental and physical well-being than actually, again, going back to the event and having to do it. I like the process. I don't have that outcome goal. I always have the process goals.
Right. In the past, I would say, I think it was before 2010, I did not enjoy training very much. I would train with the purpose of having a specific outcome. And I was kind of like that in my businesses. I didn't like the day-to-day. I was just going for that goal, for the finish, for the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And just, if you guys are wondering, if you've never tried that before, it doesn't end well. Because if for whatever, there can be so many reasons you don't make a goal in any area of your life. There can be so many outside factors that you have no control over. But I would find since I didn't love the processes that I had in my life, if I didn't make the goal, if the outcome wasn't what I wanted it to be, it hit hard. And I would be really depressed, really disappointed in myself, even if it was something out of my control. And it made me feel horrible, and typically ended with a little downward spiral that took a lot of work to climb out of that hole. And so what I did when it was happening in my sport, I took a break. I took 2 years off, and I didn't bike, I didn't swim, and I didn't run. For 2 years I walked. Oh no, I swam, but just like for fun, because I love swimming. And I walked on the treadmill. 8 miles a day, so 2 hours, and I just read books. And I read all this personal growth, all this like biographies, stories. I needed something to help fill my soul and to discover what was important to me and why am I doing this? And so I had signed after about 6 months. I didn't plan on taking 2 years off. I planned on taking like 6 months off. I signed up for the Oceanside race, and it's in March, beginning of April. I started training in January, and I was miserable like for 2 weeks. I forced myself to do training, and I wasn't having fun. So I'm like, I'm just going to bail. And that was back in the olden days where you got no money back, no matter when you canceled. So I lost my money into Oceanside. And then, so I spent a whole year just doing my personal growth, my walking, my swimming. And then the next year I signed up for Oceanside. And I'm like, I'm ready to get back into training. It's been over a year, and I still didn't want to do it. And so I didn't. I signed up. But once I started training, I'm like, I'm not enjoying this. So I bailed again. And I don't remember then the following year is when St. George had their first Ironman. And something about that excited me. I liked St. George. It was close. I hadn't done an Ironman in a couple of years, and that got me excited. So it was 2 full years off when I decided to start training for St. George. And it was a little rough because I hadn't been training for a couple of years, slowest Ironman ever. But it took me taking all that time off to, I don't know what changed in me, but I started loving every single workout. So even though the race was a little bit of a disaster, I enjoyed it along the way. And now I'm like you. I love training every single day. I always have goals like you do. I always like want to do well in specific races, want to hit either a time goal or a place goal. But if something happened and it didn't work out, like I crashed in a race a year and a half ago. I crashed halfway through the race. It was okay because I loved every minute of time I spent swimming, biking, and running leading up to the race.
Well, here's another topic I don't want to really go into, but I want to just mention it.
Touch on it.
Is if it wasn't for my failures, I wouldn't have had my successes. So when I have a failures defined by whatever the beholder, mind of the beholder, that drives me to want to redo it. If I don't perform as well as I thought I should in like an Ironman, I usually can pinpoint it to I started too fast. I missed a hydration. I missed a gel. I missed some nutritional stuff. Give me another chance. I want to change things in my nutrition and see if I can perform better, So those failures, those learning opportunities have led to my successes, which again goes back to if I didn't enjoy the process, I wouldn't have been in the sport for 32 years already.
Exactly. Yeah. Between us, I think this season coming up is my 26th or 27th season. And you started like 5 years before me.
Right. And I think our sport that we've been in for so long, again, I was an age group swimmer. I did track in high school. I was a collegiate swimmer. I started triathlon in college. I think that has created all these senses that we have around that topic of wellness.
Right.
And it has helped us with time management. It has helped us with stress management. It has helped us with nutrition and health and mental well-being. I think we talk about our sport a lot because everything about our sport has shaped our definition and our idea of how can we be well in all
Right.
those areas of wellness.
Right. And that just reminded me, we've been putting polls after our podcast to see what you guys want us to talk about. And so far, the biggest topic, so we'll touch on this soon, is in the area of anxiety and stress relief. So we hear that you guys are wanting that. So we will definitely get to that, because I know Wendy and I have had plenty of stress and anxiety in our life, and we've developed really good tools to help us deal with that. And if you've listened to us the last few weeks, or even if you know us at all, you know both of us, a big tool that we have is just moving our bodies in any way we can. Whether that's like when I tore my labrum, I couldn't swim, but I could do things with my legs. When Wendy broke her knee, she couldn't do things with her legs, but she was doing pull-ups with her arms. Like, we're always moving our body in whatever way we can.
Mm-hmm. The answer is always vitamin E, endorphins.
Exactly. Vitamin E, movement.
Yes.
So that leads us into our listener questions. And mine is totally unrelated to what we've been talking about. So mine would be a really lame segue. What about you?
No, I mean, let's just go with it. You know, this is a new topic for people, so hopefully we'll have questions about FOMO and identity for future podcasts. Now that people are listening to us, they might have some questions. But my question comes from a female in my Facebook group. She wants to know, do I trust my own training or do I trust the plan I'm doing? Also, how do I read a complicated training plan aside from Google? So again, just a little background on this athlete. I don't really know her personally, but I've been in other Facebook groups of her, and she's a ultra runner. She's focusing on running. I think she had a coach before, so maybe she's not coached. So for someone who's had limited amount of coaches, for me, I'm mostly self-coached, but I've had coaches in the past. I think it's important if you're following a plan that your coach that you're paying your coach and you trust the coach, but for some reason you're finding that you're straying off the plan that your coach gives you, you need to have that conversation with the coach, and you need to ask the question that she asked. How does she know if she trusts her training, or does she trust the plan she's following? Whether it's a plan that she found online or a plan that her coach is giving her, I think ultimately you know your body best. And if you're feeling like the plan or the coach's plan is not working for you, have the discussion with the coach. Or, you know, if you're finding like you know yourself better than any plan or any coach, continue to do what you're doing. Make sure you're keeping a training log, understanding what's working and what's not working, and maybe use your coach or use someone else for consultation purposes to discuss any concerns you have. For me, for the most part, when I've had coaches, I followed them, but I've also had followed their plan, but I've also had a coach where I wanted her to just help me with downhill running. I didn't really want her to create me a plan at all, but she did. But I'm like, I don't need this. I know what I need to do, but help meet me at the trail so you can help me with downhill running. And so it really just depends. Really, whatever you do, trust what you're doing. Keep notes of what you're doing and end up doing your performance and see if what you were doing worked for that performance.
Right. I agree 100% that if you have a coach and you don't understand what they're asking you to do, you need to immediately talk to your coach.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't understand why you're doing a training plan, you are definitely not going to follow it. If it does not make sense to you, if it doesn't work with your time. So one of the things that when I coach my athletes, I don't give them, and I know most people, I've had coaches, so I know most people say, this is what you're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever. Monday's day off, Tuesday's long swim, they give each day. And I find myself attracting clients with crazy schedules because I have a crazy schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so like people with crazy hours with their jobs that aren't the same time, like it's not a 9 to 5, they have kids, they have this, that, this. So when I'm writing out a training plan, I'll be like, okay, here are your workouts for the week. Put them in your calendar. Before you do anything, put them in your calendar where they fit around your schedule. And then if there's something you can't fit in, then let me know and we'll take something out or adjust it. But I make sure that it fits in with their lifestyle so that they can keep doing this for as long as they want. And so I would say if something's not fitting into your schedule, into what your goals. Like if I had a coach last year and it did not work out. And my goal for St. George was to run an 8-minute mile for the half marathon. And he had me doing a lot of my runs at like 10.5-minute miles. And I've been doing this for 20 something years. I have a base. Like I already have a base. I don't need to build a base. I need to like get faster running. And so I asked a lot of questions like, I don't understand why I'm doing this. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he'd be like, okay, well, just like, then do what you were going to do or do what you would normally do. And I'm like, and why am I paying you? So like you said, listen to your body. If it's a coach, you can ask them questions and figure something out to make sure it's the right coach for you, because there are as many coaches out there as there are people who want to coach. So find a coach that works for you. If you did pull something off of Google or just like Chat GPT or whatever, you just got a training plan from somewhere and you don't understand it or it's not working for you, go get another training plan.
Right. So part of her question was, how do I read a complicated training plan?
Yeah, you don't. You go get a different one.
Yeah, you don't read it, you toss it, and you don't have to figure it out. If it's too complicated for you, it's not the right plan for you.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of coaches who, it's kind of like teachers and personal trainers. There's a lot of really smart people out there that don't understand that not everybody knows what they know. And I remember, and you've been a personal trainer too forever. I remember working with this guy as a personal trainer, and he could not keep clients to save his life. And he's like, "What's your secret? How are you so booked all the time?" And I've heard him coach and heard him train, and he's so smart, but he'll use like a technical term of a muscle while training some lady who just wants to like lose her baby weight. I'm like, they don't care.
And that lady shouldn't hire him as a trainer.
Exactly. So he was wondering like, how come I'm not getting any clients? I'm like, you're too smart. Like you're talking like you're speaking with a PhD group of potential coaches or something,
right?
Not just a lay person. So yeah, there'll be a coach that will explain everything that's in very simple terms. All right. Any other thing about that?
No. What was your athlete question?
So my question comes from Tara. She's also a woman, because it's a question about menopause. She's a woman in my group. And it's funny because the more I talk to people about our podcast, I'm getting so many menopause questions. Like people want to know, like, how do I lose weight after menopause? How do I train after menopause? But this specific question, she wants to know, she asked me specifically, like, what supplements do you take that have helped through menopause to help alleviate symptoms? And my answer, first of all, is if you have any questions about anything you're putting into your body, every person is so different. So you need to talk to your doctor. That's what I would say first off. Second of all, I can tell you what I do, but I'm not you. So I take just general supplements every single day. And I had hardly any symptoms through menopause. And I've been in menopause for over a year, so I'm done. And I hardly had any symptoms. But it's also because I think being active helps. Being generally healthy helps. And I do take a lot of supplements, but they're not like a lot. I don't take a lot of specific supplements. I take like a green powder and a stuff that it has like 20 supplements in one. Like I take a mushroom powder and I take a this and that. So I think in general, I probably, between that and eating plant-based, I probably cover all the supplements.
Right.
Did look up, because I want to help you guys. I did look up what are some supplements that could help into menopause and alleviate some symptoms. They mentioned vitamin D and calcium, which a lot of leafy green vegetables, broccoli, nuts, seeds. They did mention magnesium, which is something I take, like a complete magnesium supplement. I do take that. And then omega-3s. And I take a vegan omega-3 supplement separate than all my other powdery supplements I take, which all have some sort of omega in them. So all those supplements that they list as being really good for alleviating symptoms of menopause, I either get them in my food or in the supplements I'm already taking.
I can't wait to talk about this. So I'm going to jump in. So
yeah, no,
it's an interesting topic because so when I was going through perimenopause, I didn't know I was, but it was 20, we're 2024.
We're 2025.
We're 2025. So I've been in menopause I'm postmenopausal for 4 years. Okay. And so when I was in perimenopause, I had my cycle twice a month for about a year or two.
Oh,
When I was having my cycle twice a month, I didn't think anything of it. I thought my training was impacting my cycle because that's what they tell you. It's because of your training. Now, sometimes I wouldn't have a cycle for 4, 5, 6 months. Sometimes then all of a sudden I'm making up for it and I'm having my cycle every 2 months, every 2 weeks, really heavy, really bad. And when I finally came to terms with this isn't normal, it was when I did Ironman Boulder 2015. And I felt like I was going to quit on the bike because I can't remember what my issues was, but at mile 100 on the bike, I thought I was going to stop. I didn't have any energy. I couldn't do this anymore. And then I got to the run. I'm like, if I can finish, I'll walk the marathon. And I ended up walking that marathon. And then I went to see my doctor and I told her about my cycle and I was very anemic. And they're like, are you anemic because you're bleeding twice a month or is the anemia causing that?
Right.
She didn't know. Then we moved to Georgia. And then for a couple years, when I think I was going through menopause, I'd have my cycle, and menopausal is when you don't have your cycle for 12 months. So I was in perimenopause for years. And then, I finally, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, then I stopped. I went through a year without having my cycle and I haven't had it since. And I'm actually I'm actually lighter than my traditional race weight. I didn't go through any other symptoms I had my symptoms in perimenopause, but not menopause. I think I might have had some hot flashes, but I like being warm.
I had like 3 hot flashes.
They were very, very slight and they were very short. And that was about it. No weight gain, and I'm actually lighter at 51 years old than I was at my peak, Kona weight that I've ever been at. So it's an interesting thing. But what happened to me was I'm very osteoporosis. I have very weak bones because they say you lose most of your bone mass the first 5 years after being menopausal. So I have like that. It's not a killer, but I have the silent killer. My bones are very weak. I'm a very strong person, but my bones are very weak. When I look back on I wonder why I really didn't have any symptoms. I think I mentioned to you years ago, I wonder if it has to do with being vegan. And being plant-based. Number 2, being very active alleviates some symptoms. But now that I've read Dr. Stacy Sims' book, Next Level, and I've listened to her podcast, she talks about adaptogens, the product that you and I use, Shakeology, that we've been drinking for 12 years. Is very full of adaptogens. So I feel like now that I've read her book and I've looked at all her supplements and I look at Shakeology and I'm like, I've been drinking or getting these adaptogens for 12 years. And I'm like, wow, that could be a factor on why I didn't have really, like you, very minimal symptoms because we've had all these supplements that she suggests in our bag of Shakeology.
And that's what I was thinking that too, because I drink 2 shakes a day. And then I also take athletic greens. That's one of the powders I drink. It's just like a supplement. And then I drink the First Thing, which has adaptogens in it as well. And so that's what I mean. Like all my powders, my Shakeology, my AG1, and my First Thing are all full of all those things that are going to alleviate symptoms. And I've been taking like Shakeology for 12 years. I think AG1 I've been drinking for like 5 years. And then the First Thing since it came out, maybe 4 years or whatever it's been.
So, and the only other supplement, like I don't take supplements like you do, but I have to, due to my osteoporosis, vitamin D and calcium. And then I like taking chewable vitamin C. I just like the flavor. And I usually take iron because I go in and out of being anemic since 2015. So I take those 4 vitamins. I don't even really call them supplements. They're more like vitamins. And one note I wanted to tell people, don't take supplements for the sake of taking supplements. Get a blood test and make sure you're taking what you need based on what your doctor says and based on a blood test.
Right. That's interesting you said that, because when I was pregnant, my insurance made me take a blood test, which is fine to make sure I was healthy. But before they had me take it, I was talking to the doctor, and I was because they're like, eat this, eat this, eat this, eat this. And I'm like, well, I'm actually vegan. And they're like, oh, you can't be vegan while you're pregnant. Because I had a high risk pregnancy because I was 45 years old. And so they're like, you can't be vegan. And I'm like, they're like, that's really risky for the baby if you have low iron. And at the time, I was taking an iron supplement. And I said, oh, well, I take an iron supplement. And they're like, oh, that doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, they took my blood test and they came back and they're like, oh, wow, your iron is really high. I was like, all right. So I actually stopped taking the iron supplement because my iron was already high. And even after taking it, when I went in, I get my blood taken every year. My iron is completely normal as a vegan, and I don't take an iron supplement.
Nice.
But a lot of our vegetables have iron, and the nuts have iron that people don't think about. So I 100% agree. Get a test and take the supplements that your blood tells you that you need to take.
Right, that you're deficient in.
Yeah, or your body. Realized at my last race I did last year, I mean, I was cramping like crazy. Even just sitting around, like I would just feel like I was cramping all the time. And I started taking this like magnesium complex. That's all that there's 7 or something different types of magnesium. And I've been taking that since I got back from my race in October. So 3 months. And I could tell I needed magnesium. So, all right. Any other thing about that? That was good menopause information, because I'm getting so many questions about menopause. So we'll probably either get more questions or have a whole podcast episode on it, because we're both postmenopausal and we're both elite athletes and we're both doing great.
Right. Like, I know postmenopausal women, the chances of weight gain are high, but it's not everyone. Don't just assume when you go into menopause you're going to gain weight.
Right.
You know, so I just was excited to share that.
Yeah.
Everyone's different.
That's how I was when I had a baby. So I was a personal trainer for 30 years before I had a baby, or whatever it was. And I always worked with women who were trying to lose their baby weight. And I had never had a baby, so I didn't have that experience. But I kept thinking, like, you should be able to lose it. But I wasn't that confident because I didn't have that experience. Just from research and data, you should be able to lose all your baby weight after you have a baby. And so after I had my child, I was like, I can lose this weight. And I didn't do anything extreme at all, other than I was training for an Ironman, but not until like 6 months after I had her. Right. But I did do an Ironman before her first birthday, and I was back down to my pre baby weight. So now I have, with confidence, I could tell people, like, if you just had a child, obviously do it safely and slowly and chit chat with your doctor first, but that is possible. Just like you said, it is possible to not gain weight when you're postmenopausal.
Right.
So, well, let's wrap up. What are you most excited about for this coming week?
Well, I'm getting back into the swim meet season with the youth swimmers I coach. So I'm actually looking forward to that. I have a lot of swim meets in the fall, but when my kids start high school season, they tend to miss out on I'm a USA swim coach, so I'm the year-round swim coach, and they train with me, but they go to their high school meets. So I'm excited for my swimmers to end their high school season and start going to meets that I coach. Right. I'm celebrating my 6-year anniversary since being the head coach at Lifetime. And I think back on how I started, and I had a lot of negativity about becoming the swim coach, but I can't believe I've lasted 6 years. And, in the beginning, I used to dread swim meets, all day swim meets. Oh my gosh, how did my parents do it? But I really enjoy swim meets. So I'm looking forward to the next couple months. We're kind of going into championship season, state meet, divisionals, stuff like that. So that's always a fun time for me as a
That
coach.
is fun. Well, enjoy. Good luck to your swimmers.
Thank you.
I'm most excited about, I had just celebrated my 10-year vegan anniversary. So I was vegetarian since I was a kid, but it took a while for vegan. We could talk about that on a whole nother podcast, because if you guys didn't know, Wendy and I are both being an athlete. So I get a lot of questions about that. Like, how do you train being a vegan? Well, it's very possible. But I am, to celebrate my 10-year vegan anniversary, I am getting a new tattoo.
Nice.
I'm getting it tomorrow.
That's exciting.
And it might be a 2 to 3 parter because it's going to be pretty elaborate, but I'm really excited to share it and show you when I'm done, because it has to do with encompassing my identity as a mom and a vegan all in one tattoo.
I love it. I'm excited to see it.
I know I've been really excited about it. So it starts tomorrow.
That's great.
I know. Awesome. Well, as always, if you guys have any questions you want us to answer on the podcast, please just send us a message. Do we have SpeakPipe?
We do. I think the link that we may have shared in the show notes wasn't working.
Okay, send me the link. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we had to revise the link. So we'll put it in the show notes. And if you have a problem with it, just reach out to us and we'll get it all straightened up.
Email us, message us. You guys know, you can leave a comment on the show. And then we will see you guys next week.
Take care. Make it a great day.
Week.
Thank you for listening to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten.
If you want to learn more about us or anything we talked about today, check out the links in our show notes.
We would love to know what you think of our podcast and what you want more of. So drop us a comment, send us a message, and help us out by leaving us a rating and a review.
And don't forget to let us know your wellness win for this week.
Thanks for listening.
Make it a great day.